Warbots and Zoneheads, this is internet personality Vangelus, and I'm taking a look at a review sample of Warbot Dai-Z, the Diatlasized sibling to the diaclonic Trianix Alpha. Dai-Z's number comes before Trianix Alphas, but he released afterwards. Also, Dai-Z's waist clip was fine out of the box, while many had to wait for fixed parts for his chrome-thighed counterpart. What trivia! But yes, let's say it right here, right now. Dai-Z's waist works. It will not shred to pieces, it will not shatter. There's nothing to worry about. I reviewed Trianix Alpha's robot mode first, so I'm gonna flip the table and start off on Dai-Z's vehicle modes. Getting to them is more or less identical to the Trianix Alpha transformations, though you do have to parts form some wing bits onto two of the units, and pull out a nose cone. Anyway, starting with the stock Trianix style layout, the bulldozer thing made out of the lower half of the robot mode is basically identical on Dai-Z. The colors are different, and there aren't any cannons to attach to the top, which makes the big exposed waist peg stick out a whole lot more, but it also means it's easier to insert a pilot. The arm and shoulder unit trades its treads for flight parts, as it's now clearly meant to be a little jet thing. The smaller wing slats plug into the forearm pods a little precariously, and I found that the left winglet prefers the left forearm and vice versa on my copy. While it does look like a decent alien aircraft, those fists are also still just hanging off the back. And man, if they flipped around into his forearms, the whole unit would have been elevated immensely. It also would have helped if the gun didn't stick out quite so much when installed up front. The torso piece no longer rolls, also becoming an aircraft of sorts, as it ditches all freewheeling elements for the remaining robot wing chunks, and a nose cone that may also be a drill. It can spin in place, but with immense friction that prevents it from picking up any speed or being flickable. It's not a play drill. The extended boosters on the back help to further change the silhouette and also do a good job of hiding the robot head just a bit more. This vehicle still does not lock its pilot in place, sadly. It just has those leg divots and the foldy down front panel thing. It can also take the robot's shield accessory on as some extra bulk in back. Just be careful and make sure the extended boosters are rotated down and out of the way. One of them got caught inside on mine during a transformation, and now bears a couple of depressing paint chips that are all my fault. That shield piece, by the way, makes for a decent looking turret thingy if you decide to use it as a fourth separate unit rather than immediately linking it onto the torso jet. It's just the right size to look properly bunkery when manned by the three included Heartmaster type Solarons, Driller, Speed, and Ultrasonic. Unfortunately, I have no idea which one is which, especially since these guys appear to be one main Solaron flanked by two identical partners. Both body types feature unique heads, shoulder pads, and lower legs, and these are the bulkiest Heartmasters I've ever seen to date. The huge shoulder chunks make for very unique core modes, but they also mean these guys have to have their arms in fairly specific positions when piloting their vehicles. Oh, and I did some scrutinizing. Nothing is cloned from Trianix's Solarons. I thought maybe one of the head sculpts might have been, but nope, it all seems to be entirely unique to the Dai-Z team. One could make a real kludgy argument that between the vehicle mode shapes and the Solaron names, these represent all three of the Powered Masters alt modes from Transformers Zone. One could do that, or one could attach the shield to the torso jet and just start combining these pieces into the far more Diatlas-y United Vehicle mode. The shield chunk is what really allows this to come together, but connecting it to the combined mush of the arm and leg units isn't as simple as it looks. For clearance's sake, you kinda have to half untransform the shoulders to make room for the shield's pegs to go into their corresponding holes. On the bright side, when all is said and done, the combined Dai-Z vehicle is big, solid, and weighty in hand. On the downside, the new middle pilot seat lacks any locking mechanism and is just as wobbly as the frontal cockpit, leaving the combined vehicle mode with only one solid chair up and back. But oh, boo-hoo chair qualities. This thing looks badass! It delivers the one thing that Trianix Alpha could not, and does so with a swooshable gusto that makes me wish, oh how it makes me wish, I could transform it straight into robot mode. But I can't. I'll survive. It has the kind of solid aesthetic that straight up reality checks me into appreciating it for what it is, which is a huge futuristic alien war machine. If you're a Transformers fan who needs earthy realism in your vehicle modes, this will probably make you pull a face most sour. Anyway, you've got to bust everything apart to get to robot mode, which is a transformation that is close enough to Trianix Alphas to be reasonably referred to as nigh identical. The legs do all the same tricks, no new swerves are to be found down south. The The torso jet transforms just like the Trianix tricycle once you retract the nose cone. Just be ready to feel some discomfort, as that thing likes to rattle around in a scarily similar way to how, for example, a broken internal clip might feel, if you're particularly paranoid about such an occurrence. Thankfully, it stops rattling once you attach the arms, which ditch Trianix's fold-down yellow panels and add some parts-forming wings. The connections are all just as solid as ever, and the robot mode ends with a really cool effect in which the jet booster nipples come down to double lock the central core into place. For a Trianix Alpha retool, Dai-Z looks a whole hell of a lot like Dai-Atlas. The colors are spot effing on, with a bold blue base and a specific orangey yellow that blasts right off of it. Also, while he certainly has a lot of paintwork, Dai-Z seems a lot less busy to look at than Trianix Alpha. There's a greater confidence in his presentation, and thanks to his cloned pair of Solaron shoulder pads, he gets to be symmetrical. The new wings do wonders to make his silhouette more unique, and the head sculpt is a cool super robotification of the Transformers Zone original, adding some more swoosh, but maintaining things like the weird ventriloquist doll lines running down from either side of the mouth. The shield piece attaches via 2 tabs, only onto the left forearm. A solid connection, a confusing limitation. There are no slots on the right forearm. You can use the transformation joints to curl it up a bit around Dai-Z's forearm too. The gun can store on his back, much like Trianix Alpha's. It also only palm slots into the right hand, just like Trianix Alpha's. There's no slot on the other side of the handle. Why? There's a goddamn gigantic sword included, which has no storage anywhere when not in use, but looks so wonderful in Dai-Z's grip, I almost never display him without it in hand. There's also, again, only 1 tab slot connection molded on the handle, but since the sword can flip around 180 degrees without any trouble, it is finally a thing that his left hand can hold if you so choose. The final semi-hidden accessory is a big ol' zone throwback, wherein you can remove Dai-Z's wings, connect them together into a shape one could generously call a letter Z, and then securely tab the new weapon into Dai-Z's hand for some proper Hisatsu action. This pleases me, as it's the one and only thing I'd call an essential accessory feature on a guy who wants me to call him a Dai-Atlas. Much like Trianix Alpha, you can remove the shoulder Solarons and close up the socket cleanly. Also much like Trianix Alpha, leaving the chest Solaron slot empty will look terrible. Finally, much like Trianix Alpha, the 3 bulky Dai-Z Solarons can totally integrate with the play pattern ecosystem of all these Warbot toys, though you will goddamn notice when one of them is installed into Steel Core, because his chest is gonna puff. Dai-Z's posability is more or less the same as Trianix Alpha's. There's a ball socket neck, there's a nicely clickety forward and backward shoulder motion, there is a non-clickety outward motion that only goes out to here, and I thought that this might have trouble dealing with the weight of like this sword. It seems alright, like you can handle the sword. It's actually the shield, which is heavier and bigger, where if you move the shoulder out and start moving this guy around, jostling him a bit, it starts sagging. Like if I put it there and just give him a shake, his arm's all the way back down. So that might be troublesome for some postures. However, the bicep swivel still works. The double-jointed elbow actually works a bit better with these new forearms. There's less bulk in the way, so it's easier for it to naturally do the tightest curl. The wrist can swivel. The hand can still open in a way that seems rather unsatisfactory. And as you saw, the wings, they don't fall off at the drop of a hat, but you grab them by accident or you bump them the wrong way and they will probably bump off at least once or twice while you're messing with this guy. They do still move around on a hinge and a rotational swivel so that you can pop out a little shoulder dude, close this up, and it still looks quite natural. The waist is still swivelable, and there's still a transformation joint in the middle of the torso that swivels as well, so you can twist this a bit and that for some of that natural, somewhat organic-looking torso twisting action. The hips still work the same. Nice clickety forward and backwardness. Slightly less clickety, but still heavily clickety outwardness, and this thigh piece can get out of the way of stuff. Thigh piece, though, is unpainted white plastic now, which looks really good, and also means you don't have to worry about it scratching if it does bump stuff up there. The knees are still a friction joint, and a clickety joint for the double-jointed action type thing, with a whole lot of proper curl, and the ankle tilt is still the front of the foot twisting, while the back heel has like a flat angular surface and a flat regular surface for whatever standing you want. This transformation joint can be of help here and there, But generally, this guy poses quite well. Still, would you believe it? And if you want to know how the Solaron works, then, like, don't you know by now? But if you don't, I'll help you. There's a ball socket neck, allows for a whole bunch of waggle, ball-jointed shoulders that only go out about that far, so they're more so for going forwards and backwards. Little hinged elbow for nearly 90 degrees of bend. The hips are ball socket jointed to kick forwards and backwards. They can go out a decent amount, nearly a full Van Damme. And there's a hinged knee that can curl quite tightly. Much like the Trianix Alpha Trio, these little dudes look really cool when they're all posed and actiony with their triple vehicular goodness. Hoo-yah! Setting aside things like Transformers Zone versus Diaclone or one color palette versus the other, Dai-Z is a kind of a categorical improvement over Trianix Alpha in just about every way. He has more vehicular options, more accessories, multi-function wings, and a cleaner, less busy color layout. In fact, the only faults he has that Trianix lacks are the occasional fragility of the wings, and I guess one could have a go at the fact that two of his Solarons are clones? Except I kinda think that part makes for a cooler looking set overall. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing shade on Trianix Alpha. He brings his own identity to the table, and the pairing of Trianix alongside Dai-Z looks properly commanding. Like, these two are the Warbot leadership, and they know it. I'm saying that if you only want one of the two, Dai-Z will probably satisfy you more. In the spots where Trianix Alpha feels like he's a half step back from what I want, Dai-Z took a quarter step forward. I certainly wish it was a full step forward, you friggin' non-fold-away robot hands, but much like Trianix, the aggregate of his qualities outweighs the list of his faults for me. And hey, he certainly looks like a cool guy when you pose him alongside Function X Combes Robin. Now we just need, like, Lost Exo Realm Street Flame. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and word on the street is that this might be the final entry in the Warbot line by the original Warbot designer. If that's the case, then hey, Trianix Alpha and Dai-Z are a hell of a dynamic duo to close up on. Omedeto!